Ya Ali Madat and Ramadan Mubarak. Welcome to this week's Aga Khan Health Board cooking demonstration. In these demonstrations, we bring you healthier recipes for homestyle cooking dishes from various regions around the world, including Mediterranean, Central and South Asian, as well as East African. All of today's recipes, along with more than 90 others, including kid-friendly versions, are on the AKHB's Recipes and More website, found at akhb.thesmileyusa.org/recipes. All these recipes could also become part of your evening iftar during the month of Ramadan. My name is Dr. Nasima Vera, and I'm an internal medicine trained primary care physician and certified with the American Board of Internal Medicine. I've been in practice for 27 years. I was in private practice for 5 years in upstate New York. For the last 22 years, I've been practicing at Virginia Mason Medical Center in a suburb of Seattle called Issaquah, Washington. We are honored to have Alisha Virani leading the nutritional discussion today. Alisha is a registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator. She currently works with Atlanta's underserved diabetes population at Grady Memorial Hospital, where she provides medical nutrition therapy to manage type 1 and type 2 diabetes. She has been serving for many years as a member of the Aga Khan Health Board Nutrition Team. Today, Alisha will be enlightening us on health benefits of healthier cooking and will be answering your questions at the end of the session. Our cook today is Zarina Tejani. Zarina has been cooking from a young age. She is passionate about healthy cooking and alternatives. She enjoys experimenting with cuisines from different cultures. If you have any questions during the cooking demo, please send them to us by typing them in the Q&A box. We will try our best to answer all of your questions towards the end. As a reminder, all of today's recipes are on the AKHB's Recipes and More website at akhb.thesmileyusa.org/recipes. So without further delay, let us go ahead and get started with our recipes.
We will start our first recipe by making Kadhi Khichri. Let's start with the Khichri. For this, we'll need 1 cup of short grain rice, half a cup of moong dal, 5 cups of water, and 3/4 teaspoon of salt. Boil the water in a large pot over medium to high heat. And while the water is boiling, you can combine the moong dal and the rice and rinse it thoroughly. Once the rice and moong dal has been rinsed, you can add it to the boiling water. And then add the salt. And cook on low heat for about 20 minutes or until it's thoroughly cooked. The texture of the khichdi will be very smooth, almost like an oatmeal texture once you cook it. So that even reminds me, for this recipe, you can even use oatmeal or brown rice. That can actually enhance the amount of antioxidants, fiber, and protein in this dish. You can also add vegetables like spinach and tomatoes, and even add your own mix of spices if you want to eat it on its own. It's also a great option to get in nutrients when sick and needing a more bland food option. If you feel like the mixture has not been cooked well, you can add a little bit more water. You don't want any of it to be kacha. So a smooth texture is what we want to aim for. Wow, that's looking really good. And now you can garnish with some cilantro. And then we will be making a curry to go with the khichri dish today. For the curry, we will need the following ingredients. We need 2 cups of non-fat yogurt, 2 tablespoons of besan atta, 1/4 teaspoon of haldi, 1 teaspoon of green chili paste, half a teaspoon of garlic paste, half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of mustard seeds, half teaspoon of methi seeds, 1 teaspoon of curry patta, 1 teaspoon of canola oil, and 2 cups of water. We will start by mixing besan atta, the haldi, the garlic, the chili paste, the salt, and we will mix it all together. Because we're mixing some wet ingredients with the besan ka atta, make sure that it doesn't get too clumpy. And then we'll slowly start to add the yogurt and use a whisk to mix it really well. Adding the yogurt slowly will just help you avoid any of the big clumps so that everything is mixed together. This curry with a Greek yogurt or just a yogurt base gives you a lot of protein without any extra fat. You could also use Greek yogurt if you wanted to. It would just make it a little bit of a thicker consistency. But Greek yogurt tends to have more protein. Usually when you mix Greek yogurt or whisk it, it becomes a little bit more smooth, so it's not as thick. We'll now also add a little bit of water. And this will also help to not make the mixture thick well. So more curry consistency. So next we'll take our mixture to the stove. And then we'll bring our canola oil and all of spice. And we're going to heat the oil over medium heat. And then we'll add in our mustard seeds, methi seeds, and we will mix it all together. And then we'll add in the curry patta. Heating this first in the oil helps to release the flavors of the spices. And then we'll go ahead and add in our yogurt mixture. And you want to stir this constantly over medium heat until the mixture comes to a boil. Just make sure you don't overboil the mixture. Right now, this curry looks pretty liquidy, but the besan atta flour is going to help to thicken it up just a little bit. So keep stirring. Once this mixture has come to a boil, it'll be ready to go. Besan atta is a really great alternative to regular refined flour. It's lower in carbs and calories, but it is richer in protein and fiber. It even has some antioxidants in it because of the type of grain that it is. So it's a great option when using it for cooking. You'll also notice that we used canola oil for this recipe. Sometimes we get a lot of questions about why not using olive oil. Canola oil tends to have a higher heat point. So when you're cooking a meal like this, where we're boiling the food, canola oil tends to work better. If we did this with the olive oil would tend to burn off. So as you can see, the curry is coming to a boil. And again, we don't want to overboil it, so if you need to turn the heat down, go ahead and do that. So as soon as it comes to a boil, it's ready. And you can put it into a serving dish and serve with the khichri. That looks fantastic. For our next recipe, we will be making curried spinach and green beans. For this, we will need 2 teaspoons of canola oil, 3 to 4 chopped jalapeno pepper, 2 cloves of chopped garlic, 1 teaspoon of dhania jeera powder, 1 medium diced tomato, 1/4 cup of chopped onions, 1/4 teaspoon of haldi, 1 teaspoon of tomato paste, low sodium, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 10 ounces of frozen spinach, 1/2 cup of fresh or frozen green beans, and 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. We will start by heating up the canola oil in a saucepan. And then adding the garlic, the mirchi, and the onion. If you are not usually accustomed to really spicy foods, try to make sure that when you're cutting the jalapenos, you're taking out most of the seeds. The seeds are usually where all of the spice is. So for somebody like me, I definitely cannot tolerate all the seeds in the jalapeno pepper. So we'll cook this until the onions become a translucent, opaque color. And then we'll go ahead and add in the dhania jeera powder, the haldi, the tomato paste, and we'll cook this for a little bit just to get that tomato paste a little bit more evened out and mixed in well with the other mixture. And then we'll add in our tomatoes. And just stir to mix everything evenly. This is a great vegetable dish to have on the side of a main dish. If you think about the plate method and the proportions of food, our vegetables should take up about half of our meal. So this is a great option to serve with the Kadhi Khichri. Next, we'll add in the green beans and the spinach. And we'll mix everything really well. If you're mixing and you find that the mixture is too dry, you can add in a little bit of water to give it some moisture. But usually when you're using frozen spinach, the water from the frozen spinach will typically help to keep it a little bit more moist. Frozen spinach, having that on hand is a great option for just throwing together a quick and easy meal. You don't have to prepare anything in terms of cooking it. But if you want, you can also use fresh spinach. That works well with this recipe too. Same with the green beans. You can buy them frozen or you can have them fresh. When you're buying any frozen vegetables, just make sure that it's no salt added. All you want is the vegetable. No sauce, no seasoning. Now we'll go ahead and add in the salt, which is optional, and the lemon juice. Lemon juice actually mimics the flavor of salt on your tongue. So if you're someone who is looking for a low sodium recipe or just wants to leave the salt out, you can probably double up on the lemon juice and still get the same amount of flavor. Wow, this is looking fantastic. I don't know about you, but this is making me want to eat all of my vegetables. For our next recipe, we will be making chicken egg rolls. For this, we will need 1 cup of shredded cabbage, half a cup of shredded carrots, half a cup of bean sprouts, 2 ounces of cooked shredded chicken, 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, a pinch of garlic powder, a pinch of salt, a pinch of black pepper, 8 pieces of egg roll skins, and cooking spray. To start, we will mix the following ingredients into a mixing bowl. We'll mix the cabbage, the shredded carrots, the bean sprouts, and the chicken, and then we'll go ahead and add in the sauces and the flavorings. So you can add in the garlic powder, the soy sauce, then you can add in the salt and the black pepper. Depending on the type of soy sauce you're using, you may not need to use extra salt. Soy sauce can be a little bit salty, especially if you're just using the regular version and not the low sodium version. This recipe is also a great way to add in any other vegetables you may enjoy. You can add in some spinach, some mushrooms, really anything. The more vegetables, the better. These vegetables will give you a lot more fiber and they make these egg rolls nutrient dense. So now we will take our egg roll skins and we're going to fill the egg roll skin with the mixture and roll it to form the egg roll. So we want to divide the mixture into 8 parts. You can use maybe a 1/3 measuring cup to help you with the proper portions. You don't want to overfill the egg roll skins, otherwise it's going to come out when we start cooking it. So once you're rolling, you can also use either egg wash or water to seal the ends of the egg roll skin. And as you roll them, you can place them on a baking sheet as they will be going into the oven once you're ready. This recipe is great because if you are somebody that enjoys eating egg rolls and typically gets them from a restaurant, this recipe is a better option because we're baking instead of deep frying. And that helps to save us with the amount of cholesterol and saturated fat that tends to come when we get deep fried egg rolls. And because we'll be using cooking spray, it'll make the egg rolls pretty crispy once we're done. Okay. So that should be the 8th egg roll. And now we want to take our cooking spray and spray the rolls for about 1 to 2 seconds. It might even help you to spray the cooking sheet, the baking sheet, before you put the egg rolls on too, just so the bottom of the egg roll is also coated with some cooking spray. This will help make it crispy in the oven. And then we want to bake each side of the egg roll for about 7 minutes at 300 degrees Fahrenheit. And now they're ready. Wow, that looks really great. It looks very crispy. You can serve some soy sauce on the side and maybe try to use low sodium soy sauce instead of regular to reduce the amount of sodium. You can also make these egg rolls in an air fryer instead of the oven if that's easier for you. But there you have it, our chicken egg rolls. For our last dish, we will be making a no sugar added Mawa Kulfi. For this, we'll need 4 cups of 2% milk, 6 pieces of whole cardamom, 1/4 cup of unsalted almonds, 1/4 cup of pistachios, 2 medium bananas that are ripe, and canola cooking oil spray. We'll start by heating a pan, a non-stick pan, on medium-low heat and spraying it with cooking oil spray. We will then add in the 4 cups of milk and let this simmer. Two percent milk is a great option for this recipe just because it takes away some of the fat. Now we will combine the pistachios and the almonds and the cardamom. And we will now grind them. You want to just grind them pretty coarsely. You don't want a fine powder. You can use either a blender or a coffee grinder to do this. While the milk is heating, you want to try to stir the milk occasionally to prevent it from sticking to the pan. Set your timer for about 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, you'll start to see that the amount of milk will be reduced to half and the color will start to caramelize. So you can see that it's starting to turn a little bit brown. So now you can remove the milk from the heat and let it cool. As the milk starts to cool, it should start to thicken up and it'll look a little bit like a heavy cream or like Mawa. So you can go ahead and transfer the milk into a measuring cup, a liquid measuring cup. And it'll be now easier to put it into the blender. So we'll combine the Mawa with the bananas and the coarse ground nuts. And then we'll go ahead and blend this to basically make a smoothie. You can pour the mixture back into the measuring cup. It'll just make it easier to pour this then into the molds we're going to use. And then we're adding the combination of nuts here. So this gives it a little bit of texture, so it's not as smooth. It has some crunch to it since we added the coarse ground nuts. So now you can use a mold, you can use a small muffin pan, whatever you have available, but pour the mixture into the molds. And then you can put it in the freezer for about 4 to 6 hours to let it set. Make sure you make some space in the freezer so nothing spills. And now you can see, after about 4 to 6 hours, the Kulfi has set. You can take it out of the molds and place it on a serving dish. So for this recipe, we used bananas as a natural way to sweeten this Kulfi. It also gives the Kulfi more of a creamy texture. Bananas can be a really great way not only to get natural sugar in a baking recipe, but also to substitute the amount of oil or butter in a recipe because of the texture it provides. You're also getting some fiber in this Kulfi from the nuts and the banana, so that's great. That looks delicious. And then you can top with any of the leftover pista, badam mixture. And there you have it. We hope you enjoyed learning how to create these healthy dishes. And we hope to see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia and Zarina, for showing us these delicious recipes. They are really awesome. I will have to try them out myself, especially the Kadhi and Khichri, which is sounds like such a comfort food. So now we have some great questions from our participants. Our first question is, what are other healthier versions of rice one can use besides white rice for khichdi?
That is a great question. So, firstly, I know taste is a very big thing, right? And so, if you still wanted to use white rice, using a long grain white rice can actually be healthier because the glycemic index is lower. However, ideally, you want to use something that's whole grain. You want to have a higher fiber content, but again, it does take a little bit longer to cook. So, if you are using whole grain rice like brown rice or wild rice, you can use an Instapot or a pressure cooker to make the khichdi to cut down on the cooking time. But those would be ideal types of rice to use for the nutrition content.
Thank you, Alicia. Our second question is, can cauliflower rice be used to make khichdi with moong dal?
Absolutely. I think, especially depending on how you buy the cauliflower, if you're buying it riced and it's frozen in a bag, it's going to be a lot quicker to cook. And so that will come in the step of after cooking the moong dal, adding it with all of the other spices because it will not take a long time to cook. So you don't want to overcook it. But if you're using a whole cauliflower and ricing it yourself, then you can just place it in the same part of the recipe where you're putting the rice so that it takes a little bit of the time to cook.
Thank you. That's such a great information. And cauliflower is so much healthier than rice. So that is an option that should be, that is available if you want to use that. Our next question is, what are the health benefits of moong dal? What other alternative dals can one use in khichdi?
Yeah, moong dal is one of the healthiest options that we use in our South Asian cooking. It has so many vitamins and minerals, and especially iron and fiber. There are other dals that we can use, like masoor dal, urad dal, chana, tur dal, but moong dal tends to have the highest amount of nutrients in them, which is why we use it often in a lot of our recipes. So really it's about the taste preference again. But in terms of health benefits, moong dal is the way to go.
Thank you, Alicia. Our next question is, can buttermilk be used instead of low-fat yogurt to make kadhi? Which one is healthier?
Yeah, they both are very good options. Yogurt is richer in protein and other vitamins and minerals, and it has a lower glycemic index, but buttermilk is also lower in calories. Really, the biggest difference is the amount of sodium that you find in buttermilk. It is a little bit higher. So you want to just be mindful about that, but you could technically use both in the recipes. Nutritional content is pretty much the same with yogurt, just being a little bit more higher in protein.
Great. Next question, what are the nutrition benefits of spinach?
Oh, yes. Great question. Green leafy vegetables are amazing, amazing. They have a lot of antioxidants and iron. And of course, we can't forget about the fiber, which is found in really all vegetables. But, there are vitamins that we tend to be deficient in or tend to get low consumption of, and those are typically our B vitamins and folate. And so spinach has a very high content of those, as well as iron. So it's a great option, but so is kale. So any dark leafy green vegetable is going to be a good option for getting those nutrients we tend to be deficient in.
Great. I think, Alicia, you've already answered this question, but would you mind repeating it again? The answer, would it be healthier to use olive oil instead of canola oil for spinach?
Yeah, so we get a lot of questions about olive oil and cooking. So, nutritionally, olive oil and canola oil are very, very good. The difference with cooking is that canola oil has a higher heat point. So, when we're doing things like cooking the spinach recipe or boiling, like we did in the day recipe, you want to use an oil with a higher heat point so that it doesn't burn off. When the olive oil is cooked at a high temperature and it starts to burn off, then it kind of gives you the burnt taste and look in your recipe, and you don't really want that. So both have really great omega-3 fats, which are your heart healthy fats. So nutritionally, they're great.
Thank you, Alicia. Next question is, where can you buy egg roll skins?
Yeah. So egg roll skins honestly can be found in any of your major grocery stores. So there are 4 aisles that they could potentially be found in. It could either be found in the produce section, kind of where your fresh food items are, like fresh vegetables and fruits, specifically in the refrigerator section. So where you might find tofu or any of those other refrigerated items, you can look for them there. Or usually where I would find them is the international or the ethnic aisle. Um, Usually where all the other cultures and Japanese foods are and things like that, you could find it there. But otherwise, your best bet is to just ask somebody to see if they have it.
Thank you. Can a milk substitute like soy, almond, or coconut milk be used instead of 2% milk to make Mawa Kulfi?
Oh, I love this question. Um, Yes, but just remember the flavors are going to be different. So, especially because we're boiling the milk, when you boil the milk, and I found this personally, but it is pretty well known that almond milk is the best substitute for cow's milk in cooking recipes because it has such a mild flavor and it doesn't taste different after boiling it. Coconut milk and soy milk really are not made to be boiled. They definitely change the flavor of your recipe. So just be mindful about that. But if you're going to be using almond milk as a substitute, it's just an equal substitute. So if the recipe calls for 1 cup of milk, then it would still be 1 cup of almond milk. So really the difference is mostly the flavor profile.
And what about evaporated milk instead of the 2% milk, and whether it's a good substitute?
You could use evaporated milk. I would probably just say you would want to find like a low fat option. But other than that, yeah, that could be fine too.
Perfect. Our next question is, please elaborate, what is egg wash?
Yeah, so egg wash is just cracking an egg and mixing it with 2 tablespoons of water, and using that as a way to bind the egg roll. So in this recipe, we used water, which is perfectly fine, but I like to use egg wash sometimes because it gives it the nice golden color after we put it in the oven. So if you're looking for just um, a nicer appearance of your food, then you can use the egg wash, and it's just a cracked egg with a little bit of water.
Perfect. I think we have one last question. Which one is better, plain yogurt or plain kefir?
Oh, wonderful question. They're actually very, very similar. I would probably say kefir is a little bit higher in probiotics. And the way that you know is because it's a little more sour, more tart than regular yogurt. And it's because of the good bacteria that's in there. Yogurt is wonderful for everyday use, and so is kefir, but I think kefir is definitely something people have to get used to. So I would say, if you're taking any antibiotics, I would definitely recommend kefir just to reintroduce the good bacteria. And then for maintenance, Greek or any kind of yogurt is a really good option.
Okay. And I think there's one more question coming.
And while we're waiting for that question, I wanted to also mention that for the day recipe, you noticed that we were using a hand whisk to mix the day with the atta and the other ingredients. If you have any issues with your hand or any arthritis or anything, an immersion blender or just a regular blender to mix all of those ingredients is a great way to do that before you boil it. So just wanted to throw that option out there as well.
And I think you've already answered this question, but would you mind repeating it again? Rice substitute for khichri?
Yeah, so we can do, the long grain rice, we can do whole grain rice, we can do, if you want to be bold, you can try quinoa. Any of those types of whole grain options would be the best option nutritionally. And then for cooking time, because whole grain or brown rice or long grain rice takes a little bit longer to cook, just be mindful that you might have to cook it longer than you would white rice.
And would you want to keep on adding water if you're using brown rice or?
Yes, you're going to need a little bit more water. So in general, when you're looking at instructions for cooking brown rice, it takes for 1 cup of brown rice, it's almost 2.5 cups of water. Especially with the consistency we're trying to get with the khichdi, you might want to do 3 cups, but I would add the water slowly. Start with 2.5 cups. If it starts to get a little bit of dry, you can always add more and keep cooking it.
Great. Thank you, Alisha, for all answering all these wonderful questions and all the nutritional benefits of these recipes. Thank you and good evening.